Welcome to Locally Sourced. I'm Armanda Familetti. Tonight my guest is the newly elected State Senator for the 40th District. Welcome, Pete Harckham.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Congratulations on your election. That was fantastic.
Thank you. It seems like years ago.
Oh, really? Well, you've been pretty busy, right?
We have. Since Election Day, we've been
60 days.
Meeting with every top elected official in the district for each municipality. We've had to hire staff for 2 offices, so we now have 4 people in Albany. We have 8 people here in the district in both Carmel and Mount Kisco. Wow. So it's been an exhaustive period, but very exhilarating.
Yeah, well, you folks in Albany have been pretty busy. Seems like I see bills being passed almost every day. Tell me, well, I know we talked before you were elected, and I asked what were going to be the bills that would come up in January and February, and you gave me a list.
Sure.
What's that list, and were they all passed?
Yeah, they were. In fact, we said the first 30 days we would do the red flag bill, which is a gun safety measure. We said we would do the Child Victims Act, and we said we'd do the Reproductive Health Act. We did all of those. We did a whole slew of election reform, including early voting and consolidating the primaries, which made sense. We banned discrimination based on gender identity. So it's been a very, very busy couple of days, and now, of course, we're in the budget process.
Mm-hmm. I see. So was there anything that was supposed to be done that didn't get done?
No, not at this juncture, but what we wanted to do is get those things first, because those were the ones that had been held up for years in the Senate.
Right.
And that was our pledge to unblock the logjam, and we did. And now we're focusing on the budget and some other items.
Okay. So you're the senator for the 40th District, and we have a map of what the 40th District looks like. That'll be up. There it is, the kitten jumping into the Hudson. So where and who and what all is involved with the 40th District? What are the demographics? What are the towns?
It's a very, very diverse district. You know, you have pockets of blue-collar ethnic whites, you have African Americans, you have Latinos, we have large Muslim population, believe it or not. So it's a very, very diverse district. We have urban in Peekskill, we have suburban, and then we have downright agricultural in parts of northern Westchester and Putnam and Dutchess.
Dutchess,
So we've been spending a lot of time up in Pauling, and we're going to be going back up there to meet with the Chamber of Commerce folks on some economic development issues. But we want people in the district to know that it doesn't matter whether Republican or Democrat is the elected official there. We're working with everybody because we represent everybody.
That's great.
Yeah.
One of your campaign promises, I remember, was that you were going to be accessible to your constituents.
Yeah.
How's that going?
We try to be everywhere we can.
It seems like you are everywhere.
You know, the challenge is the time in Albany is not time spent down here, but we said we would do some sort of a coffee or public event every month. We did one the first month in Patterson. We wanted to choose Patterson because I was not well known there, and frankly, I didn't know a lot of people there.
Right.
So we got to know some of the folks from Patterson, and then this coming Sunday, we're going to be in Verplanck, right near Indian Point, at the coffee shop right there. So we're going to be doing another coffee there, and these are just small, casual coffees with neighbors and people that happen to be in the diners, but it's a great way to get to know people and hear what's on their mind.
So what are you hearing? What's on people's minds? And does it vary depending on which coffee shop you're in?
It does. There are some local issues that people address. I think we'll discuss a lot about Indian Point when we're in Verplanck and Buchanan this weekend. That will be the major subject. But you hear a lot of things about high taxes. You hear a lot about education funding formulas and how that needs to be changed. We hear about infrastructure, the need for infrastructure. And we hear people's frustrations with government, that they apply for STAR and they don't get their rebate in a timely way, things like that. And that's what our constituent outreach people are for.
Okay. Have you gotten any ideas from your constituents about what needs to be addressed in the legislature? Have you started thinking about bills and?
Yeah, absolutely, and a lot of it is not as much legislative as it is finding money. You know, as I said, we've met with every chief elected in every municipality, and what are their infrastructure needs? What other needs do they have? You know, some need police vehicles, other need highway vehicles, but a lot it's water infrastructure, either wastewater or clean water infrastructure. And the governor's put a fair amount of money in the budget, certainly on the clean water side. And it's our job to help them locate it and also work with the economic development officials of New York State.
Right. So that's, I mean, when you say water, I think of ecology and conservation. And so that's bubbling up, so to speak, into people's consciousness in terms of what they're concerned about and where the money's going to come from for making those infrastructure fixes.
Right, absolutely. And we're seeing that more and more our reservoirs are contaminated with too much phosphorus, which accounts for that ugly algal bloom
the
that
blue
you see.
Algae.
Yeah, the eutrophication. So that water is unsafe to drink. Our aquifers, the wells that are higher up, contaminated with salt and nitrates, road salt and nitrates from septic systems. So it's also key to economic development. You know, if people want to have vital downtowns, you need housing, you need restaurants, and unless you have adequate wastewater capacity, you know, with this old septic systems that we're on, we can't develop the way we need to.
Right. I know that sewers and sewer repair, sewer maintenance, sewer building out is a big topic I hear about all the time right here in Carmel, Mahopac.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I assume you heard that too. Well,
Yeah.
have you been to Carmel, Mahopac yet?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
In fact,
I missed you. Sorry.
the supervisor was one of the first calls that we got right after the election. So we appreciated that very much, and you know, we also want to thank the county executive, Mary Ellen Odell, and the Board of Legislators for granting us office space in the county office building. So we are right here. We have a presence in Putnam. We have somebody there 3 or 4 days a week.
Terrific.
Yeah, and we want to be here, and I get here personally as often as I can.
And today, for example.
And today.
So I think we have a cryon for you that says 40 Glenida. So right in the heart, right next to the old courthourse. Beautiful spot.
Right, we're right in the county office building. It's
now,
very
are you
convenient.
ever there, or is it just your staff?
No, I've been there for meetings. You know, I almost never am in any of my offices for any amount of time because I feel like if I am, I'm not really doing my job. My job is to be out learning what the constituents need and talking about what's going on in Albany in the district. So I don't spend a lot of time, but if I have a meeting up there, I prefer to go to the supervisor's office, to the group that's having the meeting, to meet them in their home turf, so I see where they're based and how they operate.
Right, because you're originally from Westchester.
Yeah.
You were a legislator in the county of Westchester.
Right, county legislator for 8 years.
So you have lots of experience working with municipalities and our local leaders and knowing how the process works, I guess.
Some of that is very similar. It's just a much, much bigger canvas. And there's a lot of time spent in the car driving from meeting to meeting, and I sometimes feel like that's not the best way to spend my time, but I have to.
Right,
so,
right. Well, face-to-face meetings are important, so
yes.
How else are you going to be able to do that? And it's great that you're willing to come to them. You're not making them come to you all the time.
So. No, I think it's crucial for me to see the townhouse, see the highway garage, see the police department, meet the folks, so we know what their needs are and how they operate.
So just today, speaking of things that have bubbled up, I think, from your conversations with your constituents, I saw a press release about a Bill of Rights for the STAR program.
Absolutely.
So not everyone, I think, if you don't own property, you may not be familiar with the STAR program. So you can sort of start a little backwards and move your way up to why we need a Bill of Rights.
Sure. The STAR program is essentially a tax rebate program on school taxes for people under a certain income threshold. And it used to be run through local tax receivers, and now it's run through the state. And before it was a credit on your taxes, and now it's a rebate check. And some people have frustration because they can't get their checks from a year ago, 2 years ago. We have one.
That's what you've been hearing?
One case 3 years ago, this gentleman's been waiting for his rebate check. So we think that's unacceptable customer service, and so if someone has a problem, the Bill of Rights says you get a call back promptly within 24 hours. There's a reasonable time that's set in the law that must be enforced for you to get your check.
I think we have a slide that has some of the key points.
And I think the central point is an ombudsman in that office to handle these complaints, because staff is thin, and I don't blame staff. They work hard and they're good folks, but they're stretched too thin. So we need an ombudsman when someone has a challenge like this to help them navigate the system.
Right. So if someone does have a challenge, should they call your office and then the ombudsman?
Well, we don't have the ombudsman yet, so
okay.
that's in the legislation.
You've just proposed.
We've just proposed that they can call our office, because either the Mount Kisco office or the Carmel office, and our constituent service people are working on that.
All righty, and you have an office in Albany, right?
We do. We have that's where kind of the legislative staff is primarily, and most of the folks in the district offices are constituent service.
Oh, great! So you have that many people dedicated to constituent service.
It's very important, and believe it or not, we get a lot of calls.
I bet, and you're so new. I mean.
Fortunately, we have very good people, who are very dedicated and committed, and they're working hard.
That's great. So if I had a problem, I'll call you.
Absolutely.
Don't be afraid to call Senator Harckham.
That's why we're here. I work for the people of this district, and that's why we're here.
Okay, and I appreciate that. And you've been assigned to be the chair in your legislative duties. Of the substance...
Alcoholism and substance abuse. Yeah.
Is that a new committee, or that's been around for a while?
It's been around for a while. We are looking at a lot of things closely. There's some good things in the budget. One of them is that the governor proposes holding private insurers to a higher standard, which is one of the complaints that we've heard, is that it doesn't hold muster to Medicaid in many cases.
So, in other words, just want to dig into that a little more. If you're going through recovery and you want to go to a treatment program, are you saying that insurance doesn't always cover it, or doesn't cover the full term?
Medicaid is wonderful.
But
private insurance is not always as good. The other thing that we're trying to do is extend the challenge period. So right now, you can go into treatment for 14 days before your insurance company can challenge. You need more time than that.
I was going to say 14 days is not enough time.
Now in this budget, we're proposing up to 21 days, 3 weeks. Still not enough. Not enough, but we're getting there.
Okay.
So that's a positive thing as well.
So private insurance companies would have to provide up to 21 days.
Yes, before they can challenge your claim. Okay. So at least people are getting 3 weeks. They can begin to detox, get their feet under them. The other thing that we're doing is, if somebody goes for aftercare or outpatient treatment, they can often see 3 different specialists in a day, a physician, a social worker, a psychotherapist, and they'll often get hit with 3 different copays, which can be $150, $200 a day, and the advocates are telling us that people just can't afford that. So what we're proposing in the budget is 1 copay, and no higher than a copay for a doctor's office. So people can then do outpatient treatment and not have to choose between treatment and rent and those kind of things.
Yeah, and that's tough.
Yeah.
If you're suffering from substance abuse issues. So you're saying these are for people who would go to one location, one clinic where they see these 3 people, and the clinic.
Right. Okay. When it's one place.
Okay.
You know,
because it is possible, to, I assume, to go to those people and it's not all in one.
Right,
under one
but
roof.
the goal is to have it under one roof. There's now single licensing, so if you have one license, whether it's substance abuse or mental health, you know, then you can see people and receive reimbursement, and you only need one license. So you don't. In the old days, you know, you would need 3 or 4 licenses.
Well, that's a big improvement.
Yeah.
How fast do you think this bill can move through the
Well,
legislature?
these are all items that are in the budget, so we hope by April 4th those will pass. There's also a tax on opioids in the budget, which I personally think is a good thing, and hopefully we can reinvest that money into OASIS as incremental money, not to supplant money that's
What's
already
OASIS?
there. OASIS is the Office of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Services for New
state
York
office?
State.
Right.
So they coordinate and oversee all the treatment providers.
I see. So when you say a tax, who's paying that tax? The doctors?
That tax would be on the medication. And
So if I need to go get a prescription,
some of
I'm going
it-
to have to pay a tax as well as the cost of the medication?
it's possible it could drive up the cost of the medication, but remember, part of the tax can do 2 things. It can generate revenue, and it can change behavior. We want people to start thinking about alternatives other than opioids for their pain. We take more opioids in the United States and more painkillers than all of the other nations combined. You know, we as a nation are addicted to this notion that we have to have very strong pain medication all the time. And we need to begin to change that way of thinking. And this could help to serve to do that as well.
Well, isn't it the doctors that prescribe the opioid?
It is. And some of the doctors have gotten much better. You know, we know the stories about the hard sells from the pharmaceutical companies, and
Purdue Pharmaceutical,
non-addictive and all that stuff. And some of the doctors are getting more savvy. There's another bill that I'm proposing based on a New Jersey law that would require a doctor to inform either the patient, or if the patient's a minor, their parents, of what the risks are of taking opioids and what the alternatives might be to an opioid. You know, so for instance, in some cases, an anti-inflammatory can reduce swelling and therefore reduce pain. So maybe the anti-inflammatory is a route to go rather than a heavy opioid.
Right. Well, I know when I go to the doctor and they give me a prescription for something, and then I go to pick it up at the pharmacy, there's usually a pamphlet that goes with the prescription that tells me what all the side effects could be and this and that. So are you saying that in the doctor's office,
the doctor should do that?
They should tell you, not wait till you pick up the prescription.
Right. So you can be an informed consumer and say, wait a minute, maybe I don't want the opioid. What's the alternative? It's before the point of sale and before the prescription is written that we need to have that conversation.
Right. And here in Putnam, and probably in all of District 40, we have locations like at the hospital and the police department and fire stations where if people did get a prescription for opioids and they have a few pills left over, that they can go anytime, day or night, deposit them in a safe
Generally,
deposit
every
place.
police department will have a prescription
Right. So
drop
they're not
off.
lying around your house anymore and you forget you've got them and somebody who shouldn't be using them starts to get into them or something.
Right. And the other thing is, even for non-opioids, people should not flush their extra medications because it gets in the water supply. So if people have leftover medications, go to one of the drop-off places. They'll be securely disposed of. But one of the worst things you can do, believe it or not, is flush medication.
I know. Every once in a while there's a report about the water system containing all of these drugs.
Yes.
So we're ingesting drugs we don't even want to, but we can't help because it's in our water because someone flushed it.
Absolutely.
That's terrible. So what about legalizing marijuana?
That's a hot topic. My preference is that we get it out of the budget. I think it's too large a discussion to have within the confines of the budget, and there are a lot of moving pieces. One is, I think nobody disagrees with the fact that enforcement has proportionately fallen on communities of color, and people have been locked up for years for nonviolent offenses. And then when they get out, their lives are ruined because they can't go to college, they can't get loans, they can't get work. So that's one piece of it. The other is marijuana safe, which some people say yes, other people say that it has an impact on the developing brain up until 25. And then the other issue is on the law enforcement piece. We don't have enough drug recognition experts now for the amount of DUIs that we have. That's what I hear from the police.
I'm not sure I follow that.
Drug recognition experts, there's no breathalyzer like we have for alcohol. So it's a specially trained police officer, and it takes a lot of time, and it's very expensive to train them. We don't have enough officers as it is, and if you look at what happened in Colorado, DUIs shot up by over 100%. So we have to, if this is going to happen, we have to, in front of this, we have to have a lot of state money for our local police to get the training, and while those people are being trained, to backfill the overtime. There are a lot of things we would need to do to prepare for this.
Right, to put in place before we do
this. You hear now Connecticut's about to do it, New Jersey's about to do it. There are a lot of cons to this, and yet you can buy it in any junior high school in New York.
Right.
So,
or you could cross the border,
right?
Into Massachusetts.
So we need to really think this through before we jump ahead, and that's why we're trying to take it out of the budget discussion and have a separate discussion. And we'll be having a public hearing, in fact, in Putnam sometime in the coming weeks.
Oh, in the coming weeks?
Yeah, we don't have a date yet, but
maybe in March sometime, or
hopefully, yeah.
Oh, that's terrific, because one of the things I think I saw in the bill was that different municipalities could opt out. In other words, if Putnam wanted to be a marijuana-free zone or something,
right,
we'd say, no, you can't. We're not going to sell marijuana here.
Right now, counties and cities can opt out. I'm hearing a lot from towns and villages who, if they can't get the opt-out provision, they at least want to be able to control this through zoning. So, there's
kind of like the vape shops.
Right. Other places that have had them, they've tended to, be higher class looking establishments. It's not like they would be bringing porn shops into municipalities. But, if children are walking to school, as they do say in Pleasantville, the parents don't think that's a good sight for them to see as they're walking back and forth to school every day. So we want to see if we can give them at least the ability through zoning to control some of this.
Okay. So one of the things you mentioned that was recently approved was the voting and election reforms.
Yep.
And one of those reforms was early voting.
Yeah.
And is early voting in the budget?
We need to put it in the budget. There are some savings from consolidating the primaries, but they're not enough savings, and we said we would put it in the budget. We don't want to make this an unfunded mandate on the counties and the municipalities.
That's really the only pushback I've heard.
Yeah.
Great idea, but who's going to pay for it?
No, we have to. As a county legislator, I railed against unfunded mandates for 8 years. And so right from the beginning, at least we in the Senate said, we've got to pay for this, so that will be in the budget discussion.
Right. Great.
Yeah.
So it might happen. And then
I think it should happen, because we can't pass these costs on to the municipalities. But I remember I was in the county legislature when HAVA, the Help America Vote Act, you remember after Bush v. Gore, there was the federal commission, and that's when everyone had to go to the electronic machines. And the federal government gave us a lot of directives, and they gave us some money, not a lot of money, to buy new machines and all this new technology, and it ended up costing the property taxpayers quite a bit. So we want to protect them from that happening again.
So getting back to property taxes, because they're so high, certainly in this community, in Putnam County, are you thinking about any more? Is the legislature coming up with any ideas about how to lower the property taxes of their of New Yorkers.
You know,
is there a solution to this? Is it cost sharing? What's the answer?
Well, cost sharing is part of it. That's the short term answer. Is we do have so many duplicate layers of government. A lot of governments, local governments, are trying. They're sharing. The longer term solution is we need to move away from property tax in general. It's an archaic tax. We need to go to a much more progressive income tax structure. And so, you know, if someone's a senior citizen, my neighbor, for instance, on a fixed income, she's got to pay the same taxes I do, and that's not fair, you know, because she can't afford that. And it's not like, you know, when property taxes were first formed, she doesn't have 80 sheep on her property that she's shearing and producing wool, you know, and that was a history of property taxes.
Oh, okay.
So we need to get away from that the way other states do. You know, we'll always have some form of property tax. If we want to do our local government through that, that's fine. But we need to, at the state level, make a decision to see that the state fully and adequately funds a proper education for every child, no matter what zip code they're in. And that's going to cause some major dislocation in the tax structure on the income side if we were to do that. And we need to have an adult conversation about that, because I think people are beginning to realize property tax is no longer sustainable. And when they finish their taxes by April 15th or 17th, a lot of people are going to be in shock because they've lost the ability to deduct state and local taxes.
Okay. Peter, we are out of time.
That went fast.
I know it went fast, and there's still more I want to learn from you. You're a wealth of information. Would you come back?
I would be happy to. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely my pleasure. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Again, congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm glad you're my senator.
Oh, well, thank you, and hope to continue to earn your trust.
And thanks to the crew that comes all the time and the people who watch.